Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Woods, and today I will be discussing the 1995 movie The Babysitters Club, based on the books written by Anne M. Martin. The books were also adapted into a short-lived TV series in the early 90s and into a modernized Netflix series more recently. I was sad that the Netflix series got canceled after only 2 seasons, but it probably would have gotten tired eventually. I was in middle school when this 1995 movie came out, so it has a special place in my heart for that reason. So to begin, some thoughts during the opening credits. That theme song is ridiculously catchy, and yet I can't recite a single lyric. Ellen Burstyn is in this. I always forget that. She plays the crabby neighbor Mrs. Haberman. I love Ellen Burstyn. She's such a familiar face to me. Comforting, even though she often plays horrific characters. Austin O'Brien is in this too. He was quite popular for a second. Maybe due to Last Action Hero or My Girl 2. He hasn't been in anything much since the 90s, nothing that stands out to me. Then there's Larissa Oleynik of Alex Mack fame. This was before 10 Things I Hate About You, and it looks like this was Rachel Lee Cook's first movie. Skylar Fisk plays Kristy. She's notable for being Sissy Spacek's daughter. I don't remember ever seeing her in anything else. I pronounced her name as Schuler for the longest time. It looks like Madison Fisk, who played Beth, might be Skylar's little sister. Zelda Harris plays Jessie. It only just occurred to me as I was doing this review that she's the little girl from Crooklyn. I recognized her name when looking at the credits on IMDb. I just never made that connection before now, maybe because it wasn't until I was an adult that I started retaining info I've previously read on IMDb. Though I would have thought I would have recognized her, because I love that movie Crooklyn. I made my dad take me to see it when it was in the theater. Oh, and I just found out that the little girl who played Mallory Pike, Stacy Lynn Ramsauer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, she also played Little Ellen in The Quick and the Dead, so she played Sharon Stone's character as a little girl. I love that movie. It also came out in 1995, and I was really impressed with the way that the actress completely transformed from one role to another. Some other actors who play small roles in this include the following. Marla Sokoloff, who you probably remember as both Gia from Full House and the little sister in the Alicia Silverstone movie True Crime. In The Babysitters Club, she plays Cokie, and one of her friends is played by Natanya Ross, who co-starred as Robin alongside Larissa Oleynik and Alex Mack. Bruce Davison plays Watson. I recognize him from the TV movie A Mother's Revenge, starring Leslie Ann Warren. Kristy's father, Patrick, is played by Peter Horton, and now that I've gotten into TV movies more than ever, I've become familiar with his face and name, just like Bruce Davison's. Kevin Costner's 2 little daughters were in this, Annie and Lily Costner. Scarlett Palmer's played Susie Barrett. She's known for her role in the series Reba. So yeah, lots of recognizable names and faces, and a few Nepo babies to round things out. And I say Nepo baby with lots of affection because in life, it's always about the connections, and I don't see any shame in that. The movie opens with Kristy getting dressed in some tomboy getup, complete with boxers sticking out of her jeans. No 90s kid movie would be complete without the voiceover narration in the beginning, and the clunky introduction to the central characters. This also happened in every book I read in the series. If you read the books, you know what I mean. The character descriptions and backstories that had to be rehashed in each sequel before you could get on to the main plot. At least in the movie, we can see what they look like, so that cuts out a few paragraphs right there. Kristy has a dopey smile on her face as she rides her bike through town, like she's making this movie for a school assignment or something. And the dialogue as the girls arrive at Claudia's for a club meeting sounds like it was written for a 7th grade video project. Not necessarily how 7th graders talk, just how they talk when they're being graded on it. Gushing about how some guy likes one of the girls, and how summer is such a bummer because they all go their separate ways and don't get to hang out as much. These girls are such great friends that they actually want to go to school so they can see each other every day. I can safely say that not having school in the summer was never a hardship I faced as a kid. I'm sorry to hear they had to suffer like that. The first storyline centers on a misunderstanding involving a boy from Switzerland. Stacy gets a job babysitting a girl named Rosie, whose cousin Luca is visiting America. Stacy naturally assumes that when Rosie's mother refers to Luca as her little nephew, that Luca must be a little boy. She can't wait to hear the precious child's accent, and wow him with a miniature American flag. Gotta admire Stacy's knee-jerk patriotism. But as it turns out, Luke is only little to a 30 or 40-something-year-old woman. In fact, he's a few years older than Stacy. Considering the fact that no parent greets Stacy at the door, it would make sense that Rosie's not home alone with a 6-year-old. Stacy is immediately impressed with Luca's 90s boy good looks. The actor playing him, Christian Oliver, would have been about 21 at the time, though the character was 17, and Stacy was still in middle school. But Luca is tricked into thinking she's a bit older. A cute little misunderstanding indeed. Oh, and I just found out that Christian Oliver died this year, back in January. He was only 51. It looks like he was in the movie Animal Among Us in 2019 alongside Larissa Oleynik as well. I'll have to check that one out on Tubi or Freevee. It's a horror film. In the next scene, we're introduced to a crap load more characters because Kristy has a mother, a stepfather, a brother, and 2 step-siblings. In all fairness, some of these kids have 2 names, so that doesn't help. I wonder if Kristy's little brother David Michael continued to go by both names into adulthood. It's not even like they call him that to distinguish him from all the other Davids running around the house, even though there are enough kids in the house to warrant a couple of duplicates. And Kristy's half-sister is named Emily Michelle. Now that's just condescending to David Michael. Also, David Michael's last name is Thomas, so that means he has 3 first names. Kristy wants her very own landline phone. Her mother says no because that would spoil her. 90s kid problems. Stacy enjoys her night out on the town with Luca and Rosie. She fails to inform him that she's diabetic. Oh yeah, and that she's only 13. And he could get into a lot of trouble if he tries anything. Haha, 90s kid problems. Soon enough, we get to the point of the movie. Kristy wants to run a summer camp for children so that they can bring in extra money and spend lots of time together over the summer. Kristy talks a mile a minute. Skylar Fisk seems to be trying really hard to convince people she's a bratty yet endearing teenager, and she's my favorite character so far. The other girls aren't sold on the idea of a kid camp at first, but once Kristy gives them copies of the budget, they're completely won over. Nothing like a good old hard copy of a budget to excite a child. This was back before they could play with calculators all day on their phones. They used Marianne and Dawn's backyard for the children to run around in. By the way, Marianne and Dawn are stepsisters in case you haven't read the books. It's a huge yard. I would have thought Kristy would have been the one with the big yard given her super rich stepfather. At a local horse stable, we meet Cokie, the girls' rival. Austin O'Brien plays Marianne's boyfriend Logan, and Cokie's life goal is to steal him away. While out for dinner at a burger place later on, Dawn eats a big bowl of seeds. I wonder if it was on the menu or if she just had to ask for a bowl to dump them in. Kristy's enjoying a tasty burger, yet another reason why she's my favorite character. She appreciates good food. Kristy's birthday is just around the corner and the girls are discussing plans. They also discuss camp income potential. They're aiming for $7,500 total. They fantasize about one day having their own office with a fax machine. I have to say, fax machines are overrated. They have high hopes, but so far only 12 confirmed campers. Cokie's been sabotaging them by ripping down their camp posters. You'll have to watch the movie on Amazon's Paramount channel to find out how Kristy gets even. On the first day of camp, the kids are given colored pot holders to link them with their specific teen counselor. The pot holders say the Babysitters Club on them. Clever, but they must have cost a penny. The neighbor, Mrs. Haberman, looks like she's about to have an aneurysm at the sight of all the children in the yard next door. I'd feel the same way if I was her. One of the kids has an imaginary friend named Jimmy Tony. So now I'm thinking 2 first names is an accepted thing in this universe and not just a Thomas family thing. There's some obnoxious boy who has a crush on Dawn and wants to help out with a camp. His name is Alan, and he wears a pointless straw hat. Kristy's father returns after being a deadbeat, and he wants Kristy to keep his reappearance in her life a secret, which is always a bad sign. The kids are given timeouts based on their ages, kinda like Brown Round used to have a deal where they would charge a kid based on their weight. Good old 90s style fat shaming. I can't believe only a half an hour has gone by. Still over an hour to go. Kristy spends some good old-fashioned father-daughter time with her deadbeat dad at his campsite. Marianne joins her, though she clearly doesn't want to be there, and I wonder why she even bothered to come. Did Kristy insist? Never a good sign when you're uncomfortable being around your own father. And I wonder how two 13-year-old girls managed to sneak off with a grown man without setting off any alarm bells. Did they say they were going out into the woods to spend some quality time with a grizzly bear? Kristy's father makes her mouse pancakes, her favorite meal when she was probably 3 years old. She wants her father to do the right thing and call her mother to let her know he's in town. He's too busy to do the right thing. Also, he doesn't want to bother her mother when he's still waiting on a job offer. He gives Kristy a present, a jumper dress. Well, she does like to wear her overalls. She's a 90s teen girl after all, so the top part of the dress is pretty close. The other girls think Kristy must have a boyfriend. I suppose Stacy doesn't see anything odd about a 13-year-old girl hanging out with an older man. Stacy probably wonders what took Kristy so long. Meanwhile, Cokie has some tricks up her sleeve. Her first prank backfires, but it does result in the girls getting a friendly little visit from the neighbor. Mrs. Haberman says if they can just keep a few things in mind, she will refrain from making their lives a living hell. With all due respect, of course. The girls have an important matter of business they are currently dealing with. They want to use an old greenhouse as their new office. The place is a mess inside. Kristy has been distracted lately. She's been forgetting about important stuff, like paperwork for the greenhouse, and she bails on Claudia after promising to help her with her upcoming test. Stacy's mother hands her 13-year-old daughter off to 17-year-old Luca after an interaction between them that looks like it belongs in an SNL outtake. No mention is made by the mother about Luca being too old. She's concerned Stacy hasn't eaten enough given her diabetes and all. And sure enough, Stacy collapses while hiking with Luca. She explains that she gets quote-unquote psycho when she doesn't stay on top of her blood sugar levels. I guess that's true if by psycho she means she's in danger of losing consciousness. Kristy plays baseball with her father in the kind of secluded location that would probably be paradise to someone with bad intent. They eat peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Kristy wears the dress. She's already changing who she is for a man, and she's late to a babysitters club meeting. The girls are annoyed with her. Stacy is hanging out with an older boy, Claudia has a test to study for, and Mallory is writing a novel. They all have stuff they're dealing with, but only Kristy is struggling with her priorities. And Marianne is the only one of her besties that she trusts with her big secret. Kristy is supposed to pick up her brother at camp, but she forgets about him. David Michael goes wandering out into traffic. Kristy and her father are busy doing a silly dance on a covered bridge for no good reason other than to waste time. Later on at home, Kristy's mother and stepfather Watson are mad at her for almost getting her brother flattened into a pancake during rush hour. But he's fine, and she reminds them that that's the important thing before screaming at them to leave her alone and that Watson isn't her father. It's always important in these movies for step-parents to be put in their proper place. Stacy wants to go to New York with Luca. She just hopes her mother lets her go. Having met her mother already, that should not be a problem at all. The girls make up a little rap as a mnemonic device to help Claudia with her test. They also give her their good luck charms for, well, good luck. Kristy's father wants to take her to an amusement park for her birthday so she can go on a ride called the Monster for old time's sake. She lets him know she's tired of the lies. He says he'll tell her mother the truth when he comes to pick her up for her birthday celebration at the amusement park. He really wants to get her alone at that amusement park from the sounds of it. Apparently, kitty labor has been added to the girls' list of fun camp activities because they've got the children helping them fix up the greenhouse. Claudia got a B- on her test. Yay! And can go with Stacy to New York. Stacy and Claudia hang out with Stacy's father in the city. He lets his 13-year-old daughter go off to a club with a 17-year-old boy. Apparently, he played 20 questions with Luca first to make sure it was okay to send his daughter off with him. I wonder if he asked the boy his age, or how old you had to be to get into the club. Her fake ID doesn't pass inspection. Luca finds out she's 13. He reacts about as well as I would expect a 17-year-old boy with integrity to react to this news. Sounds to me like he didn't ask some important questions of his own. He brought this on himself. So the fairy tale romance is over. 90s kid problems. The little brats at camp pick the neighbor's snapdragons, and she freaks out. Dawn tries to mend fences by offering her a new plant as a peace offering. Mrs. Haberman invites her in for tea after scoffing at her hippie name. They almost come to a truce, but not completely. Luca is trying to mend fences with Stacy. Not sure why he's wasting his time on a kid. I wouldn't forgive her. He resorts to playing a harmonica on her front steps. She's unmoved. The girls are preparing for Kristy's birthday party at Mallory's aunt's cabin. I wonder if Kristy still plans on showing up. She hasn't told them otherwise. Kristy is trying to get in touch with her father, but she can't reach him at his hotel. She assumes she's supposed to meet him, not the other way around, even though he said nothing of the sort and was crystal clear about picking her up. I highly doubt he would have expected a 13-year-old girl to find a way to meet up with him on her own at an amusement park at night, and on her birthday. Meanwhile, she's bailed on her friends again and her ice cream cake is melting. Mallory is now in the hot seat for buying an ice cream cake. I do wonder what the heck Kristy was thinking choosing her loser dad over her friends. I get that she wanted to spend time with him, but you would think at the very least she would have told him she already had plans for the night of her birthday. And if he cared about her at all, he would have rescheduled. Instead, she stands them up. After all they've done for her. What would Meghan Trainor say about this? No excuses, Kristy. A storm causes the amusement park to shut down, and Kristy has no way to get home. She tries to call the girls on a payphone, but the line cuts out. I'm not sure how she knows the phone number for Mallory's aunt's cabin, considering she wasn't paying much attention to these birthday plans in the first place. But the girls all assume that Kristy is in trouble, and Marianne tells the girls the truth about Kristy's dad being back. The girls are all alone at the cabin. Who was the adult who agreed to this? I want to call up Facebook on them. Oh right, the court of social media doesn't exist yet. They have no way to track Kristy down because they don't have a car, so they resort to calling Luca. I knew Luca would eventually serve some point in this story. The phone works fine when they call him up to come save the day. I don't know how they knew where she was, but they managed to find Kristy walking alone on the side of the road in the rain. Stacy looks up at Luca over Kristy's sobbing head and thanks him. He winks at her. Clearly he's a ghost who showed up in her life to get her out of this very specific pickle. He will go back to the other side now. It's time for him to move on. But not before giving Stacy a magical kiss that exists outside of space and time and the laws of the land. He says he'll be back to America in a year. She points out she'll be a whole year older then, which is, I suppose, an improvement if he stays 17. This ghost theory of mine is starting to sound like the only thing that makes sense. Kristy's friends forgive her for getting all weird on them. It's a magical birthday at a cabin that's been decorated for a middle-aged woman, and not an adult in sight. A perfect night for a 13-year-old girl. All the conflicts are resolved in the final 10 minutes or so. Kristy's friends forgive her. Kristy comes clean to her mother. Her mother hands her a letter from her dad that was left in the mailbox. In it, he apologizes for being a loser and explains himself. The girls find that their greenhouse has been vandalized by Koki and her two friends. They manage to clean the place up in time for their meeting with the civic committee, who will be considering their appeal to turn the greenhouse into an office. The committee informs them that only non-profits can use this space for business purposes. Stacy announces at this point that their profit was less than $200 due to all of their unforeseen expenses. Sounds like they didn't factor the pot holders, the puppet theater, the juice boxes, and the bales of hay into their budget after all. Kind of wondering why Stacy waited until now to let the others know their camp was a flop. Maybe she figures they can't kill the messenger with witnesses present. Mrs. Haberman comes to their aid. She just happens to be on the committee too. She says there is no reason why their failing business can't qualify as a non-profit. The other members of the civic committee are dying from the heat inside the greenhouse and just want to get out of there, so it all works out. Koki and her friends are watching from up in a tree. Somehow, those three always seem to be lurking in plain sight, yet remain mostly undetected. Dawn agrees to go out with Weirdo Alan, and Kristy gets a second letter from her dad. He's getting better at this communication thing. The girls decide they don't really want to move out of Claudia's room. And why should they? Claudia's room is so much cooler than a boring greenhouse, both figuratively and literally. They decide to give the greenhouse to Mrs. Haberman, who's now their best friend. I call bull. In real life, she would have held strong and missed out on the gift of a lifetime. But she never would have known what she was missing, so it would have all been fine. The little kids helped them prepare the greenhouse for the lady, so the camp wasn't a total bust. They got some free kitty labor out of it. They spend most of their profits on plants and an answering machine for Mrs. Haberman and are only left with enough for a pizza and a salad for Dawn. Kristy says they got more than a few bucks for all of their efforts. They learned an important lesson about friendship. Kristy ends by saying that she can count her friends on more than one hand. She can count them on maybe 1.5. so that means she's doing alright. You might be wondering how faithful this movie is to the books. Personally, the books, the movie, and the most recent TV series all blur together a bit for me. There are also the graphic novels that were released in the past decade or so as well. I think the 1995 movie does a good job of capturing the essence of the books. Let's face it, while the books were certainly empowering to young girls, they weren't exactly masterpieces, but they made you feel good anyway. The one big omission I noticed was Kristy's older brothers. They're not mentioned in this movie. Maybe because it would have just complicated things, especially the whole storyline with Kristy's returning father. This is not sophisticated cinema, but it has a lot of nostalgic value. For what it intends to do, I give it 3 stars, maybe 3.5. I would give the Netflix series a 4 by comparison. The Netflix series actually bases the episodes on the first few books, which I appreciated, but it gives them a modern twist. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.